Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Story 1. I used to think I wasn't afraid of the dark. That changed on a winter night last year. I live alone in a small apartment on the outskirts of the city. It's an old building, 3 floors, faded paint, and an elevator that groans every time it moves. It's usually peaceful, except for the occasional barking dogs or distant sirens. The kind of place where nothing really happens. But that night was different. I woke up suddenly, my eyes snapping open to the dark room. It took me a second to realize why. A single knock on my front door. Not loud, not frantic. Just one solid knock. I lay still, my heart pounding. I wasn't expecting anyone, especially not at. I glanced at my phone, 2:30 a.m. Maybe it was someone at the wrong door. A drunk neighbor. A mistake. I told myself not to overthink it. But then, knock. The exact same sound. I sat up in bed, my throat dry. Something about it felt deliberate. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, aiming it toward my bedroom door. The soft glow barely reached the hallway beyond. My apartment wasn't big, just a living room, a kitchenette, and my bedroom. The front door was only a few steps away. Then the knocking changed. Knock, knock, knock. 3 quick taps. Like a code. I felt a shiver creep up my spine. It wasn't random. It wasn't a mistake. I tiptoed to the peephole, heart hammering so hard I thought I might hear it echo. I pressed my eye against the cold glass, and nothing. The hallway was empty. A long corridor stretched in both directions, the dim emergency light buzzing overhead. The doors of my neighbors were shut, locked. No movement. No shadows. I swallowed hard. Someone had knocked. Someone had to be there. I stood frozen, debating whether to open the door. Every horror movie I'd ever watched screamed at me not to. Instead, I backed away and grabbed the biggest kitchen knife I owned. I locked my bedroom door, sat on the bed, and listened. For the next hour, it continued. One knock, then silence. Minutes would pass, just long enough for me to think it was over. And then, knock. I held the knife so tightly my hand ached. I considered calling the police, but what would I even say? Someone is knocking on my door, but no one's there. By 4 a.m., it finally stopped. I didn't sleep. The next morning, I checked the security footage. My building has a lobby camera that records everyone coming in and out, and I have a doorbell camera, too. I scrolled through the footage, my stomach twisting into knots. No one entered the building after midnight. But then I checked my doorbell camera. There was a recording. The motion sensor had been triggered multiple times throughout the night. My breath caught in my throat as I pressed play. The knocking was there. A single knock. Then silence. Then 3 quick taps. But there was nothing on the screen. No shadow. No shape. No person. Just the empty hallway. The sound of knocking echoing through it. I replayed it at least a dozen times, my brain struggling to make sense of it. Maybe the camera had glitched. Maybe it had lagged at the exact moment someone stood in front of my door. Maybe, but I don't think so. I moved out 3 months later. I never figured out who or what knocked on my door that night. But sometimes when I wake up in the middle of the night, heart pounding for no reason, I swear I can still hear it. Knock. Story 2. I never believed in ghosts. I never believed in much of anything. Really, not spirits, not demons, not things that go bump in the night. If something weird happened, there was always a reason. A draft in the house, an overactive imagination, a trick of the light. But after what happened when I moved into my new house, I started to wonder. It was a small place, just a one-bedroom rental at the edge of town. Cheap, because it had been sitting empty for a while. The landlord didn't say why. He just looked at me with this weird expression when I signed the lease, like he wanted to say something, but decided against it. I should have asked. The first night, the place was mostly empty except for a bed, a lamp, and a few boxes I hadn't unpacked yet. It was quiet, too quiet. I was used to the hum of traffic, the sound of neighbors moving around in the next apartment over. But this place, it felt like it had been holding its breath for years. I was exhausted, so I went to sleep early. Sometime in the middle of the night, I woke up freezing. My window was closed, my blanket still wrapped around me, but the cold felt unnatural, like it was coming from inside my bones. Then I heard it, a whisper, soft, close. I told myself it was the wind, or maybe a car passing outside, but then it came again, clearer this time. I see you. My whole body went stiff. I wasn't dreaming. It had come from inside my room. I didn't move. My pulse hammered in my ears. Every inch of me screamed, "Don't look, don't look, don't look." But I turned my head anyway. The closet door was slightly open. I never leave my closet open. I always close it before sleeping. Always. I stared at the dark gap between the door and the frame, barely breathing. My mind raced through 100 explanations. Maybe it hadn't clicked shut all the way. Maybe I left it open without realizing. Maybe something moved inside, a faint rustling, like fabric brushing against fabric, or someone shifting in place. I swallowed hard. My phone was on the nightstand. I reached for it slowly, carefully, as if any sudden movement would set it off, whatever it was. My fingers fumbled to turn on the flashlight. I forced myself to sit up. The bed creaked beneath me, and for a second, the whispering stopped, like it had been listening. My hands were shaking as I stepped toward the closet. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I had to see. I had to know. I yanked the door open. Nothing, just empty shelves. My unpacked clothes hanging limply on their hangers. The air inside smelled stale, like old wood and dust. I let out a breath. My whole body sagged with relief. I felt stupid, embarrassed. Maybe I'd been dreaming after all. Maybe my brain had filled in the gaps between sleep and wakefulness, tricking me into hearing things that weren't really there. I shut the closet door, this time making sure it latched, and climbed back into bed. I turned off the flashlight, letting the darkness swallow the room again. I tried to calm down, tried to slow my breathing, and then, right next to my ear, "You shouldn't have looked." I felt the words more than I heard them. Cold breath against my skin. I bolted out of bed, nearly tripping over myself as I lunged for the door. My hands fumbled with the lock, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The whole time, I could feel it behind me, watching, smiling. I didn't stop until I was in my car, parked 2 blocks away, hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. I sat there until morning, shaking, heart still hammering in my chest. I never slept in that room again. I hired movers to pack my stuff the next day. I didn't step foot inside that house, not even once. I left the key in the mailbox, and never looked back. But sometimes, in the dead of night, when everything is still and quiet, I swear I hear it again. Soft. Close. I see you. Story 3. I grew up in a town so quiet you could hear the streetlights hum at night. A place where neighbors waved from their porches, kids rode bikes till sunset, and the biggest scandal was Old Man Harris getting caught sneaking whiskey into church. Nothing ever really happened there, until one night when I was home alone, and I learned that some things are better left unexplained. I was 17, old enough to be left alone for a weekend, but still young enough to feel a little uneasy about it. My parents had gone out of town to visit my aunt, and I'd opted to stay behind. It was a Friday night, just past 1 in the morning, and I was sprawled on the couch in the living room, watching a horror movie with the volume low. Outside, the world was still. The wind barely whispered through the trees. The occasional car passed on the road beyond our yard, but other than that, it was dead silent, until I saw something move in the backyard. It was quick, just a flicker of motion in the corner of my eye. My first thought was the wind, a stray plastic bag, maybe a shadow from a tree, something normal. But then I saw it again. I leaned forward, my heart beginning to knock against my ribs. The TV cast a dim glow across the room, just enough to give me a decent view through the sliding glass door that led to the backyard. My parents had left the porch light off, so the yard was swallowed in darkness, except for the weak glow of a distant street lamp bleeding through the trees. And standing just beyond the fence, barely visible in the dark, was a figure, not moving, just standing there. I blinked hard, trying to convince myself I wasn't seeing what I thought I was. But it was still there, a tall, dark shape, its outline sharp against the faint light beyond. No features, no details, just a shadow with weight. A cold chill trickled down my spine. I reached for my phone on the coffee table, my fingers numb. I kept my eyes locked on the figure, but before I could even unlock my screen, it was closer, not walking, not moving in any way I could see. It was just there, halfway across the yard now. My breath hitched. I could feel the air in the room tighten, as if the house itself was holding its breath with me. Every part of my body screamed at me to run, but I couldn't move. My hands were frozen around my phone, my mind caught between disbelief and raw, animal fear. And then, it moved again. Now I was at the patio door, a full 6 feet of emptiness pressed against the glass. I couldn't see its face, but I felt it watching me. I felt the weight of its stare like a cold, clammy hand pressing down on my chest. I wanted to scream, but my throat was locked. My fingers fumbled at my phone, finally unlocking it, but the moment I looked up again, it was gone. The yard was empty. The night was still, as if nothing had ever been there at all. I sat there, shaking, my body drenched in a cold sweat. I turned on every light in the house, checked every window, locked and relocked every door. I even moved the couch against the sliding glass door, as if that would somehow stop whatever had been out there. I didn't sleep that night. When the sun finally came up, I forced myself to go outside. I had to. I had to see if there were footprints, if someone had actually been there. But the ground was undisturbed. The grass stood tall, untouched. No footprints, no signs of life, except for one thing. On the glass of the patio door, right where the figure had been standing, There was a single, smeared handprint, too large to be mine, too long. The fingers stretched impossibly downward, as if whatever left it had been pressing through the glass. I scrubbed that print off with shaking hands. I never told my parents, never told my friends. But after that night, I never stayed home alone again. And even now, years later, I sometimes wake up in the middle of the night with the uneasy feeling that something is watching me, something that never really left.